Thank you, Gennady, for your speech. Sorry, Vladimir, for your speech. Our next speaker is Vladimir Putin, current president of the Russian Federation. Vladimir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for your kind applause. It was only 8 years ago that I stood in front of you as we evaluated the state of Russia at the time. Back then, Russia was a weak state, crippled by instability, insecurity, and ineffectiveness in matters of political, economic, and legal order. Russia was ill. Russian people felt unfulfilled and powerless. Their energy sapped by the malevolent forces that fed on such weakness. But their undying belief in the greatness of Russia and its destiny as a great and unique force has formed a moral basis on which, since those troubled times, we have built a new life together. A strong, united, and more prosperous Russia now stands before us. A healthy, resurgent Russia on the road to renewal. This has been achieved through the Russian people placing their trust in our policy of stable, orderly, and gradual government, as well as in united Russia in the Duma. Because when I say we, I refer also to united Russia, as without them and without the unity they bring, nothing would have been possible. Indeed, it was they who put forward 2/3 of the reform which has made Russia great again. Inevitably, a small elite, with their own alien agendas, have opposed our reform, indifferent to the needs of the Russian people and the principles of the Russian idea. The same elite opposed us when we established the Stabilization Fund to bring down inflation following high oil prices, something we have consistently done. As a result of this fund, the real incomes of our people have substantially increased, and the development of the Russian economy has developed at a sustainable, steady rate, providing the necessities for any dynamic post-industrial society. Under this government and that of United Russia, the Russian people are being paid on time and secure jobs, with increasing incomes. Russia has paid off its debt to international institutions, in doing so wresting back its economic independence. Its budgets are balanced and its GDP always on the increase, much to the aghast of some. Rather than indulge in abstract schemes from foreign textbooks which benefit only the few and not the common good, we have pursued a steady and sensible economic approach, one from which Russia is enjoying the benefits. But one of the lessons which Russia has to learn is that no economy is an effective economy without a strong state to implement and enforce the rules of the game. It is for this reason we sought to strengthen the power vertical, so to re-establish the will of the Russian people at every level, and to ensure the effective implementation of the decisions we make at their behest. Of course, those whose selfish interests we have curtailed will complain, cloaked in hollow accusations of authoritarianism, but to hell with them. They do not speak for us, or anyone, and they have played no part in the path that Russia is now on. Furthermore, we have made sure that the most dynamic actors in our economy can flourish and contribute within the law to the economy and society in Russia. Where there was once lawlessness, there is now order. We have clamped down on those whose only interest is to plunder our country's natural resources. Furthermore, we have introduced the new Criminal Procedure Code, which in its myriad provisions protects and safeguards the individual liberties and rights of the Russian people. We have embarked upon huge legal reform which has seen the increase in people seeking to redress grievances and enforce contracts legally, and a subsequent decrease in violence to achieve these ends. In addition, we have introduced the liberal principle of proportional representation in the Duma to ensure the proper representation of the people in our legislature. A flourishing civil society is the hallmark of any true democracy, and in line with this we have also set up the unprecedented public chamber to involve civil society in our surge towards self-fulfillment of the Russian people. Concurrently, various legitimate interests have been streamlined and institutionalized to exist and flourish within a framework which benefits Russia as a whole, to be the locomotive to modernity, where once they recklessly and irresponsibly roamed without regulation, dragging Russia off the rails in the process. We have wrestled initiative away from those who seek to tear our great nation into tiny pieces to satiate their own mendacious aims. On top of this, we have embarked upon a tough war on terrorists who seek to destroy the Russian way of life, aiming to shatter the stability and unity of the Russian people. Mr. Chairman, people of Russia, I could go on, but I'm not here simply to trumpet this presidency and United Russia's achievements. Our history is still being written. What Russia must hold on to is stability, and the handmaid of stability is continuity. Russia can only continue in its path of prosperity by continuing to reiterate its strength at home and abroad, and it can only do this by placing further trust in United Russia. Only we have calm, considered and concrete proposals to further enable the development of the individual Russian and Russian society at large. Because we must not be content with our success. Russia must go further down the road to prosperity. Economically, although we have cut inflation, we must go further, aiming to cut it to 5% by 2011. And whilst the red tape surrounding registrations and licenses have been cut, we must continue to slash it as it still suffocates our small and medium enterprises. We must continue to create an environment where investment can be attractive. And to be honest, as my eccentric friend pointed out, poverty is one of the greatest concerns facing Russia. And whilst we have halved it, we must go further still. We will do this by further increasing pensions and breaking negative trends in housing by allocating at least 250 billion rubles to the sector. This will be financed by tax collection, privatisation of state assets, and revenue gleaned from the sale of UCOS. All levels of government, federal and regional, have a part to play in the continuing resurgence of Russia. Federal budgets will be allocated large proportions of oil and gas revenue. Our policy of aiming to boost birth rate by aiding mothers with 1,500 ruble monthly payouts after their first child will be continued by doubling that amount after their second. In line with this, meanwhile, corruption is a blight upon all of our lives and a parasite on Russian growth and stability. Whilst we have undertaken several far-reaching corruption investigations this year and in previous years, we must continue to crack down on those who seek to re-establish an oligarchical state, and by continuing to cut democracy, limiting the space where these parasites can grow. The leeches who seek to sap our reserve and the wolves who aim to tear us apart and feed on our remains will not be successful. The bear will always defeat the wolf, but only if he is strong enough in spirit and does not have his paws tied behind his back. We must be aware that wolves hunt in packs, and in line with this, we must continue our guarded approach to international affairs and continue to exercise autonomy from within. Russia has a huge role to play in the international stage, but it will not be lectured nor dictated to by those seeking to further their own interests. We will be resolute in our defence of resources, holding firm to our sovereignty in times of integration. Russia must play by the rules, but it must also ensure the universal application of those rules. Whilst we seek membership of the World Trade Organization, we must also re-establish our sovereignty to the Arctic waters, whose resources lay on the natural prolongation of the Russian territory. Mr. Chairman and people of Russia, to conclude, it is therefore my conviction that Russia will retain its rightful place in the world as a sovereign and a great power. This can only be established at home. None of the promises I make to you can be fulfilled without the continuing presence of united Russia to drive through reform. The Russian people do not want further upheaval or reckless experimentation. They want Russia to remain strong and resolute in its path to prosperity, not run down blind alleys or familiar precipices that any change in our current course will entail. Everybody in Russia has a duty to ensure our continued resurgence on the road to renewal. Everybody, at every level, has a part to play in it and has a right to feel proud. We must defeat the malevolent meddlers who will return us only to the days of lawlessness, humiliation, inefficiency. We can only do this under the distinctly Russian ideals of independence, greatness, paternalism and patriotism, protected by law and constitution and embodied and implemented by this presidency and by united Russia. Under such ideals, we can and must all unite. The only ideology must be a Russian ideology, and only through stability at every political level can we establish its continuity. Only with the re-election of united Russia on December the 2nd will continue this process and help preserve Russia as a great power and a unique civilization. Thank you.